Dear Father in heaven, please bless this morning. Ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, this is a picture of Darlene and me. It was, 40-something years ago, and we both came from dysfunctional homes. We didn't know anything. Our thinking was all twisted up. Too many Hollywood movies, too much reading of romance novels. I don't know what it was, but I know this, it wasn't good. In Song of Solomon, it's in chapter 6, verse 3, it says, I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. That's like joint ownership. And when you say I do at the marriage altar, what is yours is now hers, and what is hers is now yours. Now, if she has $1 million, part of that is now yours. But dear friends, if she has $1 million in debt, you just inherited that debt when you said I do at the marriage altar. So the subject this morning is debt and other things. But debt can make or break a marriage. Money can make or break a marriage. Now this credit card, this is your Visa or MasterCard, right? It says to you, as you look at it, you can have it when? Today. You don't have to wait. And if you look at the picture, these nice smiling individuals, it tells you let the good times roll. But it doesn't tell you it'll roll you right into the ditch of poverty. So certainly you can get a diamond-coated Mercedes today with the right credit card. But my dear friends, you can't buy the right wife, no matter what kind of credit card you have. It's in Proverbs 31:10. Who can find a virtuous woman? Her price is above rubies, right? Verse 11, the heart of her husband doth safely trust in her. Sorting out beans?
Peas, yeah, there's some of them look a little moldy, so I thought I'd better sort some of those out. I'll have to sort again when we cook them, but I'm getting the worst ones out. Okay.
That's a tedious job, right? Time consuming?
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's good exercise.
I don't know how much exercise this is.
Exercise the mind.
Yeah,
exercise and patience.
Exercise and patience.
There's a lot more exercise than just muscles.
Yeah. Most of the beans and peas aren't like this. These were this little batch here was particularly not good.
We're going to cook those up for lunch today?
Not today.
Met a man one time, had a credit card like this. He said, this is a black American Express card. He handed it to me to charge something. He was a patient in our health program. He handed it to me to charge something, and the thing was heavy. I said, boy, this thing's really heavy. He said, it's made of titanium. It would survive a nuclear blast. And I said, really? That's an interesting credit card. He said, only a very few men in the world have one of these, and I'm one of them. I said, well, that's wonderful. He said, you know what the credit limit on this is? I said, $10,000, whatever. He said, no, unlimited. I can have anything I want any time that I want. I said, what about a good wife? Can you buy her with that credit card? He just looked at me. Now today, if you have credit card debt, most people do. Let's take first a savings account in the bank. Our local bank here in Waynesboro, Tennessee, they pay about 0.5% or 1% interest on your money. But on my American Express card, if I can't pay off my balance and they charge me interest, it's in the high 20s, low 30s. So 0.5% in the bank or pay American Express 32%, doesn't make sense. And of course, the more debt you have, the more interest you pay. And today, we're at an all-time high for credit card delinquency rates. That means people can't pay their credit card. So they're paying these sky-high amounts of interest. And the default rate is at an historic high as far as who can't pay for their credit cards. So I say, debt's a snare. Now, is it connected to coveting? Well, I guess so. Living to learn and learning to live on what you make, not spending what you don't have, letting the outgoes not exceed the income. Dear friends, that's a good policy to get out of debt. In Romans 13, verse 8, it says, owe no man anything, but to love one another. Now, that's a debt that heaven condones, to love your fellow man. But as far as going into debt to somebody, owe somebody something, well, it never was God's plan. Because the problem is, a credit card is conducive to overreaching. And when you overreach and you buy and you can't pay off the card, then you go into debt. And when you pay interest on a debt, you just put match to your money. You know, the credit card companies love to have these customers that can't pay their balances because that's where they make their money. Money just goes up in smoke. Now, when you're a young person like I was a long time ago, I tried to get Mom to co-sign for me a car. That means I'm 16 years old, don't have any credit. Mom does. Mom could just sign for me to have a car. But in Proverbs 22:26, it says, don't be a surety for others' debts. So my mom, I got a car, somebody signed for me, and I started paying payments. But I was in debt, and I was still a teenager. And then you get out of debt, and then you go to school, and in order to get through school, I had student loans, financial aid, and my debt was going up higher and higher. And I'm not even in the workforce yet. So co-sign for a car, you go to school, it becomes a thinking, you know, the way we think that debt's a normal part of life, right? You know, so you start out as a teenager, school finishes you off, and you come out and you think, well, I need a mortgage to get a house. Well, my dear friends, not if you build it yourself. You need to be a do-it-yourselfer. When Darlene and I moved out into the country many, many moons ago, we were trying to connect the pump so we'd have water. I called the man that did electrical work. He came over, he took 2 wires, twisted them together, put a wire nut on there, charged me $70. I said, never again, never again. I got a book, Single Phase Wiring, started reading it, and from that day until this day, I've done all the wiring, the plumbing. We built our own house with our own hands. You know, we become do-it-yourselfers. Because don't you know, in a house, like a new house, if you buy it and get a mortgage on it, half the cost of that house is in labor. And if you build it yourself, you just slash half the price of that cost. And my dear friends, this is what we did. We built this little house we're in now. It's a little house. It's a humble little place. But dear friends, we don't have any debt. When you owe money on your house, a mortgage, you are partial property of the bank. So tax rates are a lot lower. Land prices are much lower in the country. So I'd say get out of the city, number 1, get into the country, number 2, get a piece of land, number 3, and learn to be a do-it-yourselfer. This is a picture of Atlanta 40-something years ago. Darlene and I lived right downtown, Peachtree Street, Little Five Points, Briarcliff Road, and we were miserable. Spent a lot of time in a place like that, Manuel's Tavern, drinking ourselves to death, just miserable. You know, when the Lord did something for us, He gave us a piece of land. Darlene's father died, and we inherited 20 acres. And there's a picture of the place that we got. It was in a little town called Mentone, Alabama. Just a beautiful scenic view. And I said, Darlene, let's get out of here. Let's get into the country. And so she got a couple of books, No Work Gardening, another book, Let's Cook It Right by Dale Davis. I got a book, House Building Illustrated, and we decided we'd build it ourselves. Of course, we also had a mountain of debt at the time. So I built this little cabin, had some trees growing through it, parallelogram doors. Darlene made a little puzzle out of the floor. That was just, our mindset was to be different.
Yeah, these are the potatoes we planted last spring, so they start to sprout around November, and so whatever's left, I pick out the ones I'm going to plant for next year, put those aside, and then I dehydrate the rest of them.
Let me add another factor in for staying out of debt. If you can heat with wood, get a wood-burning stove, you lay some firewood in, and then in case of emergency, you can cook your food, you can heat your water. And then, of course, if you have a place in the country, you can start gardening.
This row is muscadines that I planted this fall.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get very big this year, and so they won't shade this bed. So I thought, well, I can just utilize this space and plant this garlic in it and see if we can get something.
Now that garlic's not going to make the muscadines taste like garlic, is it?
No.
You sure?
I'm sure. Little bonus here is the this is henbit. It's edible, and you may not have recognized it, but I did mix some of those in the greens that I had picked.
Darlene was very involved in gardening. Here's a picture of her way back when in her mid-20s trying to get me out in the garden. I like to watch the ball games on Sunday. Came home one day, she'd thrown my TV into the trash, inviting me to come out to the garden. And I went, right? So started growing our own food. Now at the time, I wasn't thinking about the economic blessings. I was just thinking this is what my wife would like me to do. But as I got out into the garden and saw the miracles in nature, saw the little seeds sprouting, saw the fruit growing, and I started to get my exercise, sunshine, fresh air, I figured out the garden was a place not just for food, not just for physical exercise, but for some mental stability. What I was seeing was natural. It was a creation. It was not man-made, superficial, shallow, and phony. It was the real deal. And I got a real benefit and a blessing. So my dear friends, to kind of sum it up, you need to, number one, find a place, a quiet place in the country. A place where when you go home, you found a little heaven. The city mindset is all about debt and mortgages and acquiring more and more. You can leave that behind. You say, well, I don't have any land in the country. My dear friends, don't leave God out of the picture. You pray, He will help you. You can pull up roots out of the city. You can look for a place in the country. And the place in the country, even if it's an acre, half an acre, just something, get into the country, be a do-it-yourselfer, make plans to build it yourself. I didn't know anything about building anything. Got a book. Today you can have YouTube. You can be instructed by real videos, real books, and you can do a real job of building a real house that inside you find real people in a real atmosphere of heaven. You get a little piece of your land and you devote it to gardening space and you start growing your food.
So what I'm doing today is thinning the turnip bed. I planted these on October 24th, which is a little bit late, but it is in the high tunnel. And they've grown very slowly, but they're getting big enough now. That one looks real straggly. I'm going to take the thinnings and have them for lunch, but they need thinned if they're going to make turnips and grow very much. So I'm going to hopefully have a little bag of thinnings for lunch today, and for me and my husband. And I was thinking about the really nice thing about being married. One of the aspects of being married is having a best friend. And I have a best friend that I can share anything with. I can talk about my struggles and trials. He's not judgmental. He doesn't tell anybody, even things where I think I've just done something wrong or messed up or said something I shouldn't have said. I know I can tell him and he's not going to tell anybody. And it's really wonderful to have a best friend. We cook together, we work together, we garden together, and just that's one of the nicest things about marriage to me, is having that best friend on earth. And we have a sacred circle around us with Jesus in the middle. And it's wonderful to have a godly husband that just is a good example to me of what a husband should be, and the kind of example that Jesus wants him to be. So I just thank the Lord for a good husband and for the gift of marriage.
So that's one more consideration on the way to the marriage altar. Talk to this person that you have an interest in, this potential spouse, and see what they think about debt. See what their ideas are regarding mortgages and country living and do-it-yourself and being in a natural setting, trying to grow some food and save a few dollars. You want to be fully informed. You want to pray it up, pray it out before you make your decisions. And dear friends, this is a subject that is worthy of consideration, conversation, and deliberation. So my dear friends, and remember, if you're not a Christian, if you don't believe in God, you can still see the sensibleness. You can see the common sense in trying to be in the country, have a little place that's easy to care for. You don't have a debt. You're out in the garden. Even this appeals to the mind that has no comprehension of God. But dear friends, remember, God has a comprehension of you. He wants to lead you into a place that when you go into your house, you can say, my, this feels like a little heaven on the earth. God bless you, my friends. You have a nice day.